Hello, my name's Rob and welcome to SwiftSlots. Now this is a very special video for me personally because it shows me that I'm actually making a mark in this hobby, and the reason I know this is because Pendle Slot Racing contacted me and asked me personally if I would like to review and track test their range of bond bugs and also do a review of the kit itself. And I absolutely leapt at the chance. It's not very often you get to receive the whole range of built display models from a main resin kit manufacturer. But that is what I've been asked to do in this video, and I absolutely welcome it with open arms. Not only did they entrust me with all three of their demonstration models, the models that you actually see on their website when you're choosing a kit, they also gave me a range of pre-made Slot Track Scenics figures to go with them so that I can make the thumbnail. And they entrusted that all to me just to make a video, just so that Sean at Pendle Slot Racing could see these cars going around Crow Valley and getting a time for them. It's quite an honor, to be honest with you, and I'm very pleased to do it, and I really hope that you guys enjoy watching my little nonsense review of these wonderful little cars. So with that said, let's get on the table and let's show you these little cars, and then I'm going to show you the kit, and then we're going to go to Crow Valley and we're going to track run all of these cars and see what sort of time we can get from them. And Sean has told me that I can tickle these a little tiny bit and tune them up a little bit if I feel like I want to, maybe change some gearing, and I might add a little bit of weight to see if we can eke a little bit of extra time out of them. So let's get on the table and let's have a close look at what we got on here first, and then we'll go to Grow Valley and we'll have some fun. Okay, so let's have a close look at these three cars, and like I say, these are the exact three cars that Pendle Slot Racing used to demonstrate this particular kit. So I'm very lucky to have them, and again, thank you to Pendle Slot Racing for loaning me these cars. So these cars here represent the evolution of this kit, and we'll start with this little orange one here. Let's just show you some details first. Say, the Bond Bug was a little tiny micro car sold in the early 70s, and it had tie-ins with Robin Reliant as well. I think Robin Reliant bought them out at some point, but they were closely tied with Reliant Robin, and they were sold from about 1970 to the mid 70s in the UK. I guess everywhere else as well, I suppose, but they were basically a UK based car, and they were quite unique. So very similar to the Robin Reliant in many respects, although I do think that these cars were actually designed quite a bit earlier than the Reliant Robin, if I'm not mistaken. But history on cars isn't great, I just know that I think they're really cool. So this is the classic orange one, and this was the first kit that Pendle Slot designed. And I'll take the body off and I'll show you inside, because there are some little things in here. You can see the evolution of the chassis design. So there's the inside of the chassis. Now, or body. Now you can actually see the body mounts on this particular car are actually cast in to the body, and that's not how it is now, because that's a little bit restrictive, I guess. So there's a slightly improved version now, I will show you in a moment. But these are very nice. The bodies are very well cast. Really clean and crisp mouldings on these cars. Really quite attractive. But here is the chassis from the original version. And you can see we got, like, I don't know what these motors are called. I should have looked it up, I guess. But anyway, you can see they got this quite specific back gear. And that was obviously going to be a little bit tricky to keep sourcing. And the stocks of these dry up, or the manufacturer of them stop making them, or they run short themselves. That would be a little bit of a problem to source. Quite specific to this car, or this brand. And also the front guide, very nice, but it has these very specific braids, and they've got like a flat plate on the back, so they're not your standard issue easy to replace ordinary braid. So there's a little bit of changes there, but very nice design, and it works extremely well. So this was the original design. You see it's got a really nice 3D printed chassis, very high quality 3D printed chassis, very nice indeed. You can see it's very simple in design as well. Doesn't weigh too much, as you can imagine. But you got the front wheel there bonded to the top of the guide, just for a bit of extra realism. So there is the original chassis. So then we move on to the next version. So again, exactly the same car, with a couple of little changes though. So this is obviously the white one. Really, really nice car as well. Really nice interior in there and a really nice driver figure. You can really see all the detail. So you can get into there and see. Got some really nice transfers on this car as well, and the rear lights and front lights, they're this kind of deep metallic kind of deep dish type stick-on light. So they're very, very effective is what I'm trying to say. So they're very, very good. And we've got the rear springs as well, and they're actually held on with a little bracket in the back there, so they're nice and strong. I'll show you later on in the full kit. And you'll notice here there's a little bit of a change on the back end, which is a lot better than having the other design. So there we are. So there's the white one. Looks really, really nice in white. And again, the underside there. Again, you've got the 3D printed chassis, but this time we've got a slightly different guide, and I shall show you that now. So here we are. So we've got the inside of the body now. We've got separate body mounting posts, and that makes it much easier to mount the chassis and adjust it to get it perfect, get the back wheels perfect in the arches. So there's a little change there. Again, really clean and crisp moulding on the inside. Really quite attractive. These cars are really quite cool. So here is the chassis. This is like the Mark II chassis. There's a little bit of a detail change in the front end there. But one of the biggest changes, there's two changes. But one of the biggest ones you'll notice is the back gear. We're now using standard all-slot gears. So that makes it much, much easier to keep the kit in stock and source parts, I bet. And obviously the motor now has been moved back slightly, so it gives you a little bit more choice. So there we are, all slot gear versus the plastic gear. Now this plastic gear here is a 20 tooth, so I should imagine this chassis is quite lively, so the orange one should be quite quick. And this one here is actually a 22 tooth gear, so this car should be a bit calmer, or perhaps, who knows. But so those are the two chassis, and as you can see, there is actually a change now in the front guide. So we're now using, on the second generation chassis, so a slightly different detail change there. I'm not sure whether that's important or not, but we're now using a Scalextric guide, which is really cool because now you've got reliable replaceable braid systems, and you've also got, if you want it, the replacement plate here that the Scalextrics use as standard. So not only could you just simply replace the braids, if you wanted to, you could use the straight up Scalextrics refills and they just go straight back in like that without any problems at all. Now that's got to be better for stocking than having a very specific guide that's on this one here. Got to be better. And so the springing on the guide is perfectly good, no problems at all with that either. And again, we keep the really nice 3D printed chassis, and they're really, really smart, those chassis. So that's kind of the Mark II version. And then we have what I'm going to call the Santa Special. And the reason why is because Father Christmas is driving this particular Bond bug. That's rather cool. And his candy canes, I hope that's going to come through in the camera, but he's actually got some candy canes sticking out the top of his sack, look, all ready to give the kids some sugar overdose of candy canes. So there we are. So there's the back end. Obviously these are demonstrator cars, so we've lost the rear springs, but that's just an occupational hazard of being a demonstration model. But so there we are. So there's one in red, and this one is very, very similar to the Mark II chassis, if not just the same, but I'll remove the chassis anyway and we can have a little poke around and have a look. And there we are. So it's exactly the same on the inside of this latest version with the side mounted chassis mounting posts, exactly the same as the white one, no difference there, just as clean and crisp and just as nice a body. And there is the chassis. Now it's exactly the same as the Mark II chassis, if it isn't even the same, but this time on this particular car we've got a 25 tooth crown gear, so that's going to be the quickest car, or the slowest car, sorry, of all three of these, and maybe the most manageable. Depends on how it works. We'll find out when we get to Crow Valley. But you can see there's a very small change on this tongue here that holds the guide. I don't think it actually means an awful lot. I think it's just a detail change. But we've still got the Scalextrics guide on the front there, all nicely returning as well. This particular car has lost its front wheel. It has actually lost its front wheel, as I can see the glue mark there, but again it's a hazard of demonstration models. Bits tend to get broken off with handling and so on, but there we go. So this is the latest chassis, and a very nice little chassis it is too. You can see PCS there, all 3D printed in. Again, it's the really high quality 3D print chassis, really smooth, really stiff, very, very nice little unit indeed. And there we are, all put back together again. As you can see, you've got 4 mounting screws to hold the chassis down. And what I haven't mentioned so far are these alloy wheels. These are really, really good quality alloy wheels. I used these alloy wheels on a mini build that I did recently, and they're exceptionally good little wheels. And these tyres are also very, very grippy. Even though they're very narrow, they got a lot of grip to them. And these tyres will offer more grip than this chassis can handle, I'm sure of it. But if we go back to this first generation car, you actually get a set of mini light inserts with this kit as well, and I'll show you that in a minute. And moving on to the full kit, as you can see, it comes in this very nice strong plain white box with just the label on the front and nothing on the sides. So when you open up the kit, what do you get presented with? You get presented with that, a wicked little instruction manual with bomb bug on it. Really, really nice instruction manual this. I'll try and go slowly on that, so if you wanted to pause the screen, you could possibly stop and read it. There we are. If we just slow the video down, or pause it. Now there's that. And then the other page is just flip over like that, and we have the instructions there also. So there we are. So that's the instructions. Very comprehensive, very good. So back to the kit. So here we are. Here is the kit in its box. We have the very nice piece. We'll hold that for a moment. And then we have the interior parts and external body parts. And then we have the driver figure parts. So let's start with the meat. Come on. We got to start with the meat of the video, because this is a really nice piece. So this is how you get your bomb bug out of the kit as complete standard. Look at that, a completely built, ready to go car, all bar the side pods and 4 screws. In fact, the side pods are already screwed to the chassis. All you'd need to do is put a bit of double-sided tape or a bit of glue, bonded into the body, and you'd be running instantly. So this car comes with a 25 tooth crown gear, which is probably the most sensible gearing for this car. Lovely alloy wheels, very grippy Pendle slot racing rear tyres, all pre-assembled in this 3D printed chassis, again with the Scalextric replaceable front end for quick replacement braids, or the entire replacements plate there with the guides on it if you wanted to, all set up, all perfectly springing back to centre with absolutely nothing to do. And that is a really nice little unit for such a unique car. To have this chassis pre-built for you with all high quality components, that is a real plus for this kit. So there is your chassis, really quite impressive, full 3D print as well, and that's yeah, very, very nice indeed. So you've got plastic rear bearings, plastic gear, but you've got a hybrid metal and plastic crown gear. Now you'll notice that the actual shaft of the motor doesn't go into the slot of that crown gear, because the side flow of that axle is controlled by the fact that the back wheels are up against the bearing, so there's nothing to wear out. So although that boss is aluminium, that motor shaft is not touching it. So that's a really nice feature, which means these gearings will last indefinitely, and you won't ever really need to change that crown gear. So all replaced, all fitted in with a grub screw. If you should need to replace it, you can easily do that. So a very, very good little chassis using parts that are easily sourced at a later date if you should need them. And there is the body. Now, with all Pendle slot bodies that I've noticed recently anyway, they are superbly cast with a very, very high quality finish. I don't have any problems with these Pendle slot kits. They are superb. Just a very, very light dressing over the top to key the bodies down before you prime them, and that is all you need to do. And that's only so that the primer will stick to the body and doesn't just slide straight off on an unprepared body. But as you can see, the quality is absolutely there. A really, really nice body. No flash, nothing around the bottom there, just a straight up, really clean cast. even on the inside, really clean with almost nothing, well, nothing to do, to be honest. Really good quality. So that's the body. So what else do we get? Let's have a look at this little bag of parts here. We have a little civilian driver. There he is, just there, very nicely cast, very realistic. He's even got 70s hair on him, so he's quite prototypically correct for the era. And these are the rear springs I was talking about that's missing on the orange car. And now you can see the actual brackets they hold to. So these brackets will glue down to the chassis with a nice big glue contact patch and a nice web in there for strength. So although these aren't necessarily the world's strongest parts, they're not going to take a crash, real hard crash, and a shunt from the rear. But if you don't crash the car from the rear, they're going to be amply strong enough, even though they're very fine detail. So nothing wrong with those at all. And here we have the front wheel with the front arm, and as you can see, that it simply glues to the plate on your front guide. So it makes a really good contact patch with some really good detail in there. Mini light wheel as well, and there's some spring detailers there. So that'll look really cool if you paint it up. You'll just see that little hint of a spring from the underside of the car. That's a very nice piece. And then to match on the rear wheels, those beautifully 3D printed mini light wheels or inserts for the rear wheels. And then in the big bag, we've actually got a really clean interior, vacuum formed interior, weighs basically nothing at all ready to paint, absolutely superbly vacuum formed out. Even got the creases in the trousers. We got the iconic lines in the seat, so they're very classic for this car. A handbrake and a top of a gear lever and all the rest of it. So there we are, really nice interior. And then we've got the glass as well, so you cut out each individual pane and bond it into the car with some canopy glue or PVA or something along those lines, not CA. And here we have those awesome lights that I was telling you about. They're really good. I think the light's catching that. Those rear lights are super reflective, and they've got like a dome of resin over the top of them, so they really take on a life of their own when the light hits them. And the same with the front ones as well. You can see that they're actually shining really nicely. Really high quality. Adds a lot of extra dimension to have really high quality lights. And then we have the iconic Bond Bug water slide transfers with the actual bug there, and it's even got the speedo. That's actually the speedo to go on the dashboard. And then we got the striping and the number plates. Again, very nicely printed. Now, if I'm not greatly mistaken, CNC Designs print these, and CNC Designs make some really high quality water slides. I really do like their water slides. They go on extremely well, and they react extremely well with the decal softeners and the bonding agents and so on. They actually conform really well and stick very well, and they come off the sheet within a few seconds, so you don't have to wait forever waiting for them to lift. Very good water slides, and these are going to be excellent. So there we are. That's the whole range of Bond Bugs sent to me from Pendle Slot Racing. We had the full kit, and we have the 3 demonstrator models owned by Pendle Slot Racing. So hopefully you've enjoyed that overview of the kit and the cars. So now we're going to go and have some fun. We're going to run all 3 of these cars around Crow Valley and see if we can get a half decent time, because I'm told these cars handle really well. There you go. Father Christmas wins. He was probably rushing to give all those sugar candy canes to all the kids to give them a mega sugar rush. Anyway, if you've been watching this channel long enough, you would know that I would normally berate a 70-second lap, but you can't do it with these cars because speed is always going to be hard with a three-wheeler. There's no front axle and no front wheels to support the front end as it goes into a corner. Plus, these cars are very, very small and very light. It's always going to be a challenge to get a fast time, but these cars really aren't about fast times, I don't think. They're just a lot of fun, and going around the track, they look awesome. Now, I did, to be honest, put a bit of weight into these cars because the first time I ran them around the track, they were 78 seconds apiece. All three of them were 78 seconds. And then I added a little bit of weight to one of them and I managed to get a 74. And then I tickled around with the weight a little bit more and ended up making a horseshoe of lead over the back of the white one and the orange one, sorry, the white one and the red one, because they are the newer chassis, and you could get a horseshoe of lead over the rear pinion of the motor so that you could actually get the weight down a bit lower, and that was only 5.5 grams. But in the earlier orange kit, I put a slab of 2mm lead on the top of the motor, which totaled about 10 grams. Now, the trouble with that was that this car did become quicker, but all that weight up high on the top of the motor tended to make it more unstable. So yes, it was capable of going faster, but it's more difficult to drive. So then I ended up reducing that lead down. I couldn't put it over the rear pinion because of the design of the older chassis that's no longer sold anyway. So I reduced that down to about 7 grams and then bent the lead down either side of the pinion just to try and get some of the weight down. And then this car then was able to run almost as quick as the other ones. You'll notice the orange one's got a slightly slower speed just because that weight, I just couldn't get it down low enough. And it does run as well as the others, but the weight wasn't helping it. But the other two, if you get a horseshoe of lead, I tucked around the ends as well to get a bit more lead in that space. 5.5 grams, got it down over the pinion, sunk down into the rear of the chassis, and it transforms the way the cars run. So it went from a 78 down to the 70 that you saw, 8 seconds quicker just by putting 5.5 grams in the back. Now, if I was building one of these kits myself, what I would be inclined to do is underneath the motor where the chassis is, I would cut out a square and I would try and get 5 to 6 grams of lead in that space where you chop out the bottom of the chassis. That would get just the right amount of weight in it and get it really down low, and that would really, really help these cars as well. So in terms of gearing, the original car with that 20-tooth pinion, with that 20-tooth crown gear, she was a bit cammy. She was a bit kind of off power, on power. So I'm not sure whether that was really helping. But the other two, with the 23, was it, or 22, and certainly the 25, they were where you really want to be. And certainly the 25, as I suspected, the gearing suits the car much better on a 25 tooth, and it makes the car run really, really well. There's plenty of power there, and there's also plenty of top speed. All of these cars have got more than enough top speed, and I was able to run all of these cars at 80%, my normal 80% on Crow Valley. So that's about 10.5 volts, and they run really, really well on that. And like I say, the new chassis with the new 25 tooth runs superbly well with a bit of weight as well. Absolutely great. So now we've seen the performance of these three-wheelers, one wonders what they would go like with an extra front axle and 2 front wheels. Well, you don't need to wonder too much longer, because Pendle Slot Racing have asked me to turn this 3-wheeler body into the Reliant 4-wheeler prototype. So keep your eye open on Pendle Slot Racing's website and their social pages for when that kit becomes available. So if you're interested in buying one of these kits, they are available on the Pendle Slot Racing website to buy. And if you have any extra questions for them, you can use their email link at the top of their website. So hopefully you've enjoyed this content and you found it interesting. And if you have, maybe you'll subscribe. And if you could hit the little bell button, that would be awesome. So from me and Pendle Slot Racing, thank you very much.